Krueger Show on a Monday. Hope everybody's doing great. Hope everybody had a phenomenal Easter weekend. As I was just telling Raj, I ate way too much. But you know what? My brother had a ham going. He's a Kings fan. I'm a Warriors fan. So I had to just keep eating to avoid talking. Yeah, because I didn't want to get into too much of the Warriors are coming to town to kick ass. I didn't want to get into that. But we're going to talk a little Niners this segment with the man from RSF 49ers. We normally go Monday at 1, but I'm doing the radio today with Mark Willard, an afternoon drive on 95.7 The Game. So we moved it up a little bit. The great Raj is in the house with the flannel. What's going on, Raj? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I sounds like you had a great Easter weekend, man. And
yes,
Kings and Warriors. I'm not going to say nothing. Your brother might hate me after I say what I got to say, but I'm doing good, and I'm ready for the draft. Honestly, I'm getting bored waiting for it. There's nothing really out there other than rumors. So yeah, I'm doing good, man. I hope you're doing.
I know. Seriously, we're living and dying on rumors. The rumors. We've got a couple people checking in. My good friend Paul Hope from across the pond. He says, "What's up, Larry?" Checking in from across the pond. Paul, how are you? I would say good morning, but it's probably not morning there. And he says, "Raj, great to see you, buddy." So you're familiar with the great Paul Hope?
Oh, of course. I know. I see a lot of channels. I've seen his channel. I've talked to him on Twitter. So there's so many people out there that cover the Niners. They're all great.
Yeah, no, seriously. And, doing, this last year, doing some work with the Niners, doing some broadcasts on TalkSport and TalkSport 2 with the great Will Gavin. What's really clear this year is that the 49ers are already and very much an international brand. And you saw it with the attendance figures on the Cardinal home game in Mexico City between the Niners and the Cardinals. It was 90% Niner fans, and then the UK audience is growing by leaps and bounds. And it's just the 49ers are they forget they're not your local yokel. They're not a regional team. They're not a national team. They are international, without a doubt. And I mean, it's like the popularity of Niners Nation, Raj, is just taking off right now.
It's crazy. I hope this year we get a UK game like that Jaguars game. There's rumors saying it's going to be in London. Oh, man, that would be amazing. Get your passports ready, Larry.
There you go. Fish and Chips says, "Good evening, Larry." There you go. Yeah, you go. Exactly. Fish and Chips has been a UK brand since the 80s, Larry. Yeah, you can thank Joe and Steve and Bill and Eddie. And, the 49ers kind of saw the vision on the international thing decades before the rest of the league fell, way before Shad Khan and the Jaguars were ever on the scene. The Niners were already expanding their brand, and that's a big part of why the 49ers are, the Niners' success in the 80s and 90s, let's be honest, that has a lot to do with why they're an international brand right now and why they're growing. Terradome says, "Krug out here moving the needle, my man." Terradome, how are you? Good to see you on a Monday. All right, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. 2 locations. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera in Marin County. If you come to the Bay Area, you need to go to Pig and a Pickle and get your barbecue. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, Wednesday through Sunday in the East Bay in Emeryville, which is where I am at. And I usually hit Emeryville more than I hit Corte Madera, but I hit them both. All right, Raj, the stream is entitled, "Are the 49ers moving on from Javon Kinlaw and Brandon Aiyuk?" Now, 2 late-breaking stories over the last few days that we want to start with today. The 49ers met with and went to dinner with Keandre Coburn, who's 6'1", 332 pounds. And you can look at this any number of ways, but to me, you almost cannot talk about Coburn and their interest in Coburn without mentioning Javon Kinlaw, because they really are the same kind of player. You could make an argument that Keandre Coburn from the University of Texas is very much a DJ Jones-like player. stout against the run, kind of compactly built, but with a little quickness. I think he had a bunch of pressures this year and showed a little bit as a pass rusher. So that rumor is out there, and you say, well, aren't they six deep at D tackle? They've got Kinlaw, they've got Givens, they've got Armstead, they've got Hargrave, they've got Kalia Davis, they've got T.Y. McGill. Krug, do they even need another defensive tackle? And I would say on the surface, no. But that makes it more interesting as to why they were looking at Keandre Coburn out of Texas. And what do you think, Raj? Do you think the 49ers, who there's no cap advantage to trade Javon Kinlaw, but I could easily see him getting moved on draft weekend. Do you think this is like 1 year ahead of time, like they've done in other situations? Like, hey, let's try to draft a guy like Coburn, and then we won't pick up the fifth-year option on Kinlaw, and then we'll go with Kinlaw this year and say goodbye to him next year? Or do you think that we may see Kinlaw move during the draft, and Coburn could be, the replacement for Kinlaw as soon as this July?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Honestly, I can see both scenarios because Javon Kinlaw, let's be honest. We love Kinlaw in terms of the potential he may have had, but he didn't pan out. The injuries are there. Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, specifically Lynch said, we're going to commit to him this year. But to me, I would be so shocked, Larry, if they pick up his fifth-year option. So the 49ers, they're always looking for the future. This is a guy that he definitely looks like a DJ Jones kind of clone, but he has a little bit more, athleticism to him. He's powerful nose tackle. This guy could line up in the middle, and they need a guy next to Hargrave because Hargrave, I know it's a 4-year contract on surface. It's more like a 2-year. So they're also not only planning for getting rid of Kinlaw, but you got a guy that could maybe come in and let Hargrave kind of mentor and be the next heir apparent too. So they're definitely looking for the future, but I can see them moving Kinlaw. I don't know how much value he has. I don't think he has much. So it's more of like we'll throw him in to move up a position or two, a spot in the draft. So I think ultimately they keep Kinlaw because I just don't think he has a lot of value, and they're going to see if he can play out because, like you said, he doesn't have a lot of value to them against. If you just get rid of him, you're going to take a hit in the cap. So you might as well see what they have in him. Absolutely think that this pickup would be signaling, this basically tells me next year Javon Kinlaw's not going to be back. And not only that, I know they have Kalia Davis, but we don't know what to expect from him coming off a torn ACL. This is his redshirt year. It was a redshirt year for him. So, and I talked to him a couple weeks ago behind the scenes, and he says, I just want to go out there and prove and see what I got. And, I don't even know how many snaps I'm going to get. So a guy like that, you still need someone else to kind of mentor and bring up the roster to at least say, like, okay, we got depth. Because on surface, it looks like we have 6 defensive linemen there, but it may be 4 or 5 injuries again. And Kinlaw, can we even count on him to make it to the regular season? I don't know. I wouldn't put my money on it, unfortunately. So absolutely, this is a need for us. I think so. I still think it's a need, and it does signify that, hey, next year, Javon Kinlaw, he gone next year. He's not coming back.
Yeah, 6'1" and 5'8", 332. That's Coburn, and he's a run stuffer with a great first step. There's no question about that. He's a 2-gap guy. I look at him as a high motor replacement for Kinlaw. As we said, the question is it this year or next year? And by the way, I should cite my source on that. That was Justin Mello of the Draft Network who had that rumor, the 49ers hosting Texas defensive tackle Keandre Coburn. What I really liked about Coburn is 31 pressures and 4 sacks this last year. So I think he's got a little bit more pass rush than you would think on a 6'1", 330-pound man. I'll say this. I know it's not advantageous necessarily, or there's no true advantage to moving Kinlaw right now, but I think the 49ers are going to show this in this draft weekend that even though the rest of us would be fine with Kinlaw coming back, I think they're going to be decisive in their evaluations of a couple players, and I think one of them is going to be Javon, and I think they're going to move off of him. I really do. I think they've got their starters, they've got their depth, and to me, they don't have any room for Javon Kinlaw if they draft Keandre Coburn and he makes the team, because they really don't. That, you can only have so many guys, and though they love their depth, heck, they love rolling into training camp with 16, 17 defensive linemen. So if they kept him, it wouldn't totally shock me. But I just think that just the fact that they need to have one guy who can be that guy who absorbs blockers and keeps bodies off of Warner and off of Greenlaw, off the linebackers who are undersized and like to be, freed up to roam and make tackles. And I think if they're even looking at Coburn seriously, and I think they probably are, to me, I think they're going to make a hard evaluation on Kinlaw and move him on for whatever they can get. I think they'll be able to get something for sure. I don't think they'll be forced to cut him, but I don't think they'll get anything significant. But it doesn't mean they won't move off of him. Just from being in the room and seeing the personalities mesh, I just think that if Kinlaw is going to play and be in your rotation and be a factor, then I think he fits in the room. But man, if he's just going to be banished to depth and reserve status for any period of time, not due to injury, just because he's been ineffective, I think that's not going to play well in the room. So I'm going to predict that he's going to move. But I will say this: he has been working out. He has been doing a lot of things. He understands. I talked to him about it. He understands that his whole deal is based on playing low, playing with leverage, protecting his knees. It's like all tied together. So I could see him coming back, but if you say make a call one way or another, I'll say they're going to move him in this draft. Now, the other name on the top of this title are the Niners moving on from Kinlaw and Aiyuk. I really don't like the idea of moving on from Aiyuk, and I wouldn't have even entertained it as a topic, Raj. But then there were reports this weekend. You saw it. Odell Beckham signed a new deal. He's no longer on the market. And he got a $15 million signing bonus, which is amazing considering he just came off his second ACL. And I saw him last. He looked super pumped up as far as upper body weight. And I would never have given him a $15 million signing bonus. But one of the little subplots to this story this weekend is not only is OBJ no longer on the market, it sounds like the 49ers were hot on his trail. I don't know if you got that out of the reporting or not. I don't know if hot on the trail, but at least we're interested in Beckham. And we know going back they had interest. But does that make you at all think that they will be in? I mean, this is a really down year for wide receivers. Raj, you can make an argument that Brandon Aiyuk may land them a first-round pick if they wanted to move him, because he's the best wide receiver available probably over the draft. I think he's better than any of these guys in the draft. I wouldn't move them, but they do have Debo, they do have Jennings, they do have Gray, they do have Ray, they do have Tay Martin coming back. There's a bunch of receivers in this draft that they could easily grab. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Mingo. The more I watch film, I like Marvin Mims from Oklahoma quite a bit. There's some good real late day 3 guys that I like a lot as well. Darius Davis from TCU flies. There's reports that they like a kid named Boogie Knight, which I'm not even joking about that. His name's Boogie Knight, and who would be more of a special teamer. But what do you think? Is there interest in OBJ? Was that going to end? Who was going to be? They don't have roster spots for extra wide receivers. So if they were interested in OBJ, what does that mean for Aiyuk? Does it mean anything for Aiyuk? And if they were interested in OBJ, whose spot do you think he was going to take?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something I was thinking about. And you're right about the draft this year. There's a multitude of receivers. Tank Dell, that's another guy I like. Tank Dell,
Houston.
But we could sit here and name all the wide receivers in college. But what it means to me for Aiyuk, which my prediction, because they haven't officially picked it up, they said they're going to 5th-year option. I believe a couple days before the draft, they'll pick it up. They have till May 1st. Last year, I was looking back at last year, they picked up Nick Bosa's on the 25th of April. I'm pretty sure that they're going to do around the same thing because it's right before the draft. I think Lynch usually has his pre-draft meeting, and he goes in front of the media and he has his plan and whatever that he's going to say. So pretty sure they'll pick up Brandon Aiyuk's 5th-year option. They told us they were, but to me, what it means is his price just skyrocketed. It absolutely just went crazy. The fact they gave Odell Beckham Jr. $15 million signing bonus, and it's a deal that it's worth up to 18 million, up to 18 million for a guy coming off his second ACL. Like that is wild to me. I don't know what he has over GMs, or it's a chokehold. I know we go back and you look at old OBJ tape and you're like, oh my God, the one-handed catch, and he's got so much potential. But that's when he was healthy. This man's been through 2 ACLs. I know he can come back at a high level, but that's crazy to me. To me, that just moves Brandon Ayuk's price up the market like crazy. At least 20 million, 21, 22. I don't know. We saw what Debo's contract was last year with the wide receiver market, which was booming last year. So if anything, Brandon Ayuk's price tag is going to go up. And this, of course, is a contract year for him. So if Brandon Ayuk goes out there and has another 1,000-yard receiving season, I mean, it's going to make it hard for the 49ers to come and bring him back next year. I think they'll bring him back. Obviously they have a fifth-year option, but he's going to want an extension. He's not going to want to play on pennies. So eventually the 49ers are going to have to make that decision and say, look, we either got to trade him or we do have to pay him. And I think that's what Brandon Ayuk's going to do. He's going to force their hand and say, hey, look, man, I'm worth it. I'm your guy. Look at me. It's like he tweeted a couple weeks ago, right? The fourth option, still got 1,000 yards. Ultimately, I think they figure it out. I think they're not going to trade Brandon Ayuk, but I think me and you talked about this about a week or two ago. Is they're going to be at this position next year if they keep him on the roster. They might have to decide between Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. It might come down to that. So, the OBJ trade or signing it's pretty big for the wide receiver market because, again, he got paid a lot. And going back to what you said as far as the 49ers being in on OBJ, this was a month ago. I remember they were saying, the 49ers are looking into him. He's one of the teams. That was at his private workout in Arizona. They were there. Scouts were there. And, he was doing his little routes and catching passes. He looked buff and everything. And 49ers were there. So I'm sure there was some truth to the matter of they were looking into him. Who would he replace? That's a good question. I mean, they got Jawan Jennings coming back on his tender. You got Ray McLeod. Maybe they just wanted another star. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he would replace Brandon Ayuk because Brandon Ayuk, to me, is a better receiver than OBJ is right now at his current state. He's 30 years old, coming off of 2 injuries. So it's interesting to think who the heck would he have been able to replace unless they just wanted more depth, Ultimately, I think he, chose a big contract. I don't think the 49ers were going to pay him that much. $18 million, if he hits all his incentives, just way out of the 49ers price range, especially they got to pay Nick Bosa later this year. But overall, I think Ayuk stays. They'll pick up his 5th-year option in about a week or two. And next year, they will have a massive decision. Do I see them trading him during the draft? Absolutely not.
It's one of the to me it's one of the biggest questions coming into this draft is Ayuk going to get moved? Simply because if they're looking at receivers and they have met with a number of receivers, they don't have any. There's no room at the inn. You know what I mean? They got no. And there's some intriguing guys here. Michael Wilson from Stanford might have been the best receiver in Mobile. I mean, he was really, really good at the Senior Bowl. This kid Marvin Mims from Oklahoma gets the kind of separation that Kyle Shanahan loves to see on film. There's been people speculating about Jonathan Mingo, and I think Mingo from Ole Miss is really interesting. Brock Purdy's college receiver, Xavier Hutchinson. If they're going with Brock at quarterback, and we don't know that for sure, but if he's the leader in the clubhouse, as Lynch said, would they try to bring in his college receiver, who's a hell of a player, Xavier Hutchinson? And then there's some really intriguing day 3 guys. Bryce Ford Wheaton, ran in the 4.3s at 220 pounds and 6'4". And there's others. I mean, there really are. I mean, Matt Landers from Arkansas is 6'5". He runs 4.3. There's Elijah Higgins from Stanford, who I think is more of a tight end, but he's an interesting guy. And then there's guys further down the list. Joseph Nada from Clemson, maybe undrafted, but he's a Sacramento kid from Clemson who I could see them going with. And then that's the top wide receivers. Then you look at the slot receivers. You mentioned Tank Dell from Houston. They met with Jalen Moreno-Cropper, the Fresno State receiver. I mean, if they're going to go in this draft for Jake Haener, maybe Moreno-Cropper makes sense. Demario Douglas, from Liberty is an incredible stop-start receiver. Darius Davis from TCU is a burner. If they were going with Max Duggan, and they may want to go with him. I mean, there's a lot of interesting receivers in this draft. I'll tell you one guy that I saw very late in this process that is pretty interesting as well is Davis. What's his name? Shaq Davis. You gotta go watch film on Shaq Davis, who played at the same school that produced Javon Hargrave, South Carolina State. He's a 6'5", 180-pound receiver who just makes all kinds of plays. And then I mentioned the kid Boogie Knight, who might be a special teamer. But that is going to be an interesting thing to watch because, you know, you can't have all these weapons. You're not going to keep them all. Maybe you can for a year, but at the end of the year, guys like maybe Elijah Mitchell or Aiyuk might get squeezed out. The fact that they're looking at receivers in the draft just kind of makes me wonder about what they envision for their wide receiver core. Why are you looking at receivers in a core that has Debo, Aiyuk, Jefferson, Ray, Danny Gray, Tay Martin? That's 6 pretty good receivers right there. They typically keep 5, and they're looking to draft more. That makes me wonder who's going. So that's a story to watch. All right. Let's get to – oh, go ahead. You want to jump in?
What it tells me, maybe – I know they're – of course, we talked about it earlier. They're always looking for the future. I mean, again, Aiyuk could be someone they may move down the line. Debo, but maybe Jennings because he's on his tender. Maybe next year they let him walk. They need to get a replacement for Jennings. And also maybe Danny Gray's just isn't what they thought. I mean, obviously it's only in his second year. Maybe they want a little insurance in case Danny Gray's not what they thought. But yeah, there's a lot of receivers out there.
You know, those are both great points. And you know, if you ask me, Krug, just based on what OBJ is today as a receiver, which receiver that the Niners have would he really replace? And there's no doubt it's Jennings. It's Jennings because OBJ, I don't know if you saw him, but he's put on a lot of weight in his upper body. He's pretty yoked up, and he didn't have great 40 time to begin with. Now he's had a couple injuries. You know, he probably, if there's a receiver that he moves like of the Niners group, it's Juwan. And what does Juwan have? Juwan's got the great ball skills. What does OBJ have? OBJ's got the great ball skills. So, you know, if they were interested in OBJ, if they're interested in some of these bigger receivers, maybe it is they're going to draft, and maybe they'll move Juwan. Maybe Juwan will get moved this draft, or maybe it's literally they're doing that 1 year ahead thing, and they want a big receiver. And as you kind of referenced there, maybe they'd move on from Juwan Jennings. That will be interesting. Juwan's made so many big plays for the 49ers. All right, let's get to topic number 2, and that was there was a rumor this weekend, an internet rumor on Twitter saying that the 49ers would entertain trading Trey Lance to a team for a second and a fourth-round pick. I went and looked at the site, and yeah, they had the blue check, but the blue check doesn't mean a whole lot because you can purchase that. Then I looked at the followers, and the guy's got 6,500 followers. That's, I mean, Raj, you got 6,500 followers in your back pocket, right? I mean, you know, you got 6,500 followers under that hat right there. You know, I mean, that's not a lot of followers in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I myself am a nobody, but I've got 5, 6, 7 times that, on Twitter. So, my first inclination was, bogus. Somebody's getting off on making a bunch of people scurry around. Then I went to the guy's site, and he broke a number of stories before reputable media people. Everything from Justin Fields to the hiring of Shane Steichen. This guy had it before other people had it. And these moves all came about. And if you go and look at it, there's like 15 or 20 things that this guy predicted ahead of time that did come true. So before we even talk a little bit about the actual, the content of it, just when you look at it, I mean, there's the people who are pro Trey are just like discounting it out of hand. Not credible, nothing to see here. But the thing has gotten a lot of traction. Grant Cohn did a whole video on it already. What do you think? What do you think? Is it a credible source, or do you look at that 6,500 followers and say, it's not credible? Did you see what I saw as far as did you click on the link there to see, what the what basically pinned to this guy's Twitter is all these other revelations that he's made and so on and so forth. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I don't. Obviously, I don't think it's a legit source. But at the end of the day, yeah, I saw his other um, things that came true, whatever the case is. I mean, honestly, it could be like a good guess because Trey Lance's name is in the air right now. It's a trending topic. Trey Lance, obviously, this is easy. This is time of the season. It's smoke season. It's lying season. This is the time where we don't really have much news. We don't have much content. So rumors are going to be flying, and it's going to gain traction. Obviously, it doesn't even matter how many followers he has, and all those things because this is a trending topic. It's going to get engagement. Now, is his trade? Realistic? It's absolutely realistic. And there's something we talked about, me and you, that I know you've been predicting a lot over the last couple of weeks that Trey Lance is going to get traded. If you listen to the comments from John Lynch and Trey Lance or Kyle Shanahan, so it wouldn't surprise me if it is true or if it's something out there that maybe someone heard through the grapevine or if it does happen. But do I think this is a reputable source? Absolutely not. I mean, NFL notifications with the blue check mark. Never heard about this page until yesterday. I could put a blue check mark on my page. It doesn't mean I'm a credible source, but it's funny, because now everybody's going to go out there and have their say on it, and they got exactly what they wanted. Me and you are talking about it. Grant Cohn's talking about it. Everybody's going to be talking about it in Ninerland today. It's just, this is what happens every year around this time of the year is people drug up stories and they take a trending name and they throw it out there and see if they sticks to the wall. But again, the rumor is the 49ers are willing to trade quarterback Trey Lance in exchange for a 2023 second and a fourth round pick per source. Now, again, just because I don't think this is a reputable source doesn't mean that I don't think that the Niners would absolutely look into that. If it's the 49ers, if someone were to call them up and say, hey, look, we'll give you a second round pick and a fourth round pick right now, I'm sure they'd think about it. I'm sure they'd absolutely think about it. It is, something that John and Kyle would have a discussion about. But again, to answer the initial question, do I think this is a credible source? Absolutely not.
So, it's one of those things. It's like how many followers do you need to have before you're a credible source? I was somebody was asking me that yesterday. Well, that's a great question. I'm like, that is a great freaking question. All right, let's go to Matt Williamson. Are you familiar with Matt Williamson? Williams at Williamson NFL. This guy has 52,000 followers on Twitter. He is a scout, or maybe either a former scout. He's worked for University of Pittsburgh. He's worked for Akron, the Browns, ESPN for 10 years. And now he does Locked On Dynasty, the Peacock and Williamson podcast. So he does a podcast with Peacock. So I would say Matt Williamson with 52,000 followers and a former scout who does a Locked On show, and he's on with Brian Peacock. He's a little bit more credible. Matt Williamson tweeted out Trey Lance to the Titans, ? The Colts, the Ravens, the Patriots. I'm betting he moves. So, I don't know, there you go. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, I think, but who knows? Who knows? I don't know what to believe. Let's attack the other aspect of it. Let's pretend that the guy who had 6,500 followers is credible, because if you go look at his thing, he has broken some stories. Forget him for a second. Let's just focus on the content now of his tweet. He says that Trey Lance will be moved for a second and a fourth round draft choice. And it's funny, a lot of people were like, well, I don't think it's credible, but I don't think I think Grant's take was, I don't think this is necessarily a credible source, but I don't think the Niners could get a second and a fourth round pick. And then my good friend Ryan Hensley says, you know what? I don't think it's a credible source, but I do think they could get a second and a fourth round pick for Trey. And this is the part that kind of makes me laugh. People really argue all over the map on this stuff. It's like, They're not moving Trey. He's way too valuable. He's got too much upside. He's too special. There's no way they're going to move off of this guy with this incredible upside that's so much higher than Brock Purdy and so much higher than Sam Darnold. They would never move Trey. And then sometimes those same people would argue, and by the way, they're not going to get a high pick for him. Oh, wait a second. Is he great? And he's worth a lot to somebody who's really sharp? Or is he worth nothing? It's like we can't even really decide if Trey Lance has value or no value. I mean, this is how in the dark most people are when it comes to Trey Lance. We have no idea. And I put myself in that situation, by the way. I'm not talking down. I'm actually grouping myself as the people in the dark on this. I think we all need to recognize that me, you, Raj, you got hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. None of us really at our core know how Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, the two central figures that run the 49ers, how they evaluate the quarterbacks, including Trey Lance. So we don't know. I mean, we don't know how they could think he's going to be Mahomes and it's just going to take some time, or they could think he's just a non-NFL entity, and we just don't know it yet. That's what makes this so intriguing on so many levels. One, it's because it's the quarterback for the Niners, an iconic franchise. But two, it's like we don't really know how they feel about Trey. And so we don't know if these rumors are credible. We don't know if the price tag coming back's a good deal, a bad deal. You know what I mean? We have no idea how they view him.
No, we absolutely have no clue. That's what we've been talking about for the last couple months. We don't even know if Trey Lance is going to start week one because we don't know exactly how Kyle and John Lynch have felt. They don't tell us a lot. They tell us, what they need us to know. They tell us the facts, but they don't tell us everything that's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, absolutely not. Nobody knows what Kyle believes about Trey Lance. They might think he's the guy and they're not telling us. Who knows, right? Although I do believe them when they say like Brock Purdy's the leader of the clubhouse with all that. I believe that kind of stuff, but we don't know their true intentions with coming into the draft. And we never do because they're not going to sit there and tell us. They like to play chess while everybody else is playing checkers, right? But in terms of this deal going into, again, we're going to play the game and say, yeah, okay, let's say this is a real thing. A 2023 third and a fourth round pick, I don't think that's even that much. I think that's fair value for a quarterback that could be great. Again, quarterbacks, the market, it's supply and demand. People are looking for quarterbacks no matter what. Look what Carolina traded to go up to get the number 3 pick, right? Or the number 1 pick, sorry. Like that was a lot. They gave up, and who knows, whoever they draft, who knows if they're going to pan out or not. But you're trading up because you want a franchise quarterback and a guy that gives you a cheap contract that you may be able to build around. He may bust, he may be great. Who knows? So I think that's fair value. A second round pick these days to a lot of teams is nothing. A fourth round pick, teams throw them around like nothing. Honestly, some teams don't even value draft picks. The 49ers do because they have such a good developmental team. They know how to kind of scout those late round picks. Some other team, look at the Rams. They'll be throwing around picks like it doesn't matter. So you have to look at it that way. I think there's some GMs in the league that just use a pick to throw it around. And the 49ers aren't like that. I think 49ers fans are like, oh, that's not fair because we value picks. We see picks as like, oh, man, this could be Fred Warner. This could be George Kittle. This could be Talanoa Hufanga because that's what they do with these picks. They turn them into stars. We're one of the very few franchises that develop our talent through the draft. Most of these teams, they don't. They buy players, free agency, they trade their picks. So I feel like that's the issue. But if I'm John Lynch and this is the deal that's thrown to me, I would actually say, hey, I would consider it. But again, do I think this is a credible source? No. But again, to go back to your answer, the other guy that you had mentioned with the 50,000
Matt Williamson, yep.
To me, he's credible because he's been in the league. He's been a scout. He's been around like in those things. So this guy, maybe one day NFL notifications will be, a credible source. But he's got to put in that work. He's got to have those big, leads and work with the team, work with an NFL, agency or something. But you got to start somewhere. So, I mean, it's fun for us to talk about it. So, again, he created something, a rumor, and here we are talking about it. So, at the end of the day, he did what he had to do. And we'll see how it goes in the next couple of weeks. Again, if the 49ers do trade Trey Lance, you're the first person I'm messaging, Larry, because you put this out there before anybody else, my man.
Well, yeah, I did, but you know what? And someone who's, the one thing I would say to because I get a lot of hate for that. I get a lot of hate, and people misconstrue the whole thing. And I've tried to think of an analogy to try to explain the differences and what I did as opposed to what people are accusing me of. It's kind of like the weatherman on the news tonight. He's not rooting for, coastal fog and warmer inland. He's predicting coastal fog and warmer inland. I'm not rooting for Trey to be traded. I'm predicting Trey to be traded. There's a huge difference. Please understand the difference.
So true.
And there's so many people that don't. Like, dude, you're a fucking hater. You're the guy driving it.
It's crazy.
I'm just giving you my opinion. Ah!
That's
based on what I've read, based on what I've heard, based on what
the night
drives me
after
crazy.
You predicted that, Larry. The day after you predicted, I go on live and it was like, oh, I can't believe Larry. I was like, and I had to say, I was like, he was making a prediction. He wasn't saying it's going to happen. He's not even throwing it out in the air. He was reading the tea leaves, and I had to explain it to people that this is called a prediction. It's not his narrative. It's not what he wants. It's just.
I'm not sitting there going. Yeah. I'm not. If they trade him, I'm not gonna be like, yes, yes. No, I'm gonna see. I may say yes, but it's all gonna be predicated on what's coming back. Yeah. It's not, and what they do. If it's picks, then what? I'm gonna wait until after they make the picks, and then I'm gonna tell you if I like the trade or not. But I'm fearful of moving him because I think there's huge upside. But I will say this: it's like when I did put that tweet out, a lot of people pushed back and were like, Krug, first of all, he's not getting traded. Stop, why you stop issuing all this hate or levying all this hate in his direction. Okay, that was the one. And then the other one I got was, and you're a moron. They're not going to get a first-round pick for him. My point was, if you traded Trey and one of your third-round picks, you might be able to get into the back end of the first round. And if a great player, in my opinion, like a Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, an Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. I like this kid Emmanuel Forbes, the corner from Mississippi State. If one of these true difference maker players somehow fell to the bottom of the first round, you might be able to nab them by trading Trey in that third and moving up. That was the kind of and people were like, you're not getting. And I'm like, dude, I didn't say you're getting a first for Trey. I'm saying you're getting a first for Trey and a third round pick. Now you've got a guy predicting, saying that there's a rumor that they would get a 2 and a 4. Well, a 2 and a 4, or that the Niners want a 2 and a 4. A 2 and a 4, for compared to moving Trey in a third, for a late first. I mean, it's 2 dozen of one. You know what I mean? It's a half dozen of one. It's 6 of another. You know what I mean? It's very, very close here. So, to me, I think they could get into the late first round if they move Trey in a pick or Trey in some conditional pick. I think that's still possible. Yeah. And you say, well, why do you feel that way? Well, let's look at the quarterbacks. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker. Right now, those 5 guys are projected to probably go in the first round. I'd rather have Trey than Will Levis, and I'd rather have Trey than Hendon Hooker. I think I'd rather have C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson than Trey. But even then, even those guys have their own question marks. They're far from locks. But then you get to the second round, I'd rather have Trey than Tanner McKee. Much rather. He has way more movement ability, way more athleticism. I'd rather have Trey than Jay Kaner. But then I'm looking at the Niners going, okay, well, if they did want a 2 and a 4, what would they do with it? I think that 2 would be for that first round pick that inevitably falls to the second round, and they had a first round value on the guy, and he's there in the second round. Maybe a guy like Forbes, maybe it's a tackle, maybe it's an edge rusher, maybe it's some special position player or a skill position player like a Michael Mayer or Dalton Kincaid or something like that in the second round. And then in the fourth round, why would they want the fourth round pick? Well, because I think the Niners want to fill their needs at the end of the third round. Yeah. And I think that might be a little high for Might be a little high, to be honest. I don't know where Jake Hayner's going to go, but that might be a little high for him. Might be a little high for Jaron Hall, DTR, Clayton Tune, Max Duggan, Aiden O'Connell. That next group of quarterbacks, but the fifth round may be too low. You may
Yeah.
look up in the fifth round when they pick, they don't have a fourth round pick, and the DTRs and the Duggans and the Hainers and the Tunes could all be gone by the fifth round. So if they wanted to replace Trey in the draft, which obviously they would have to if they moved him, and get a meaningful player to add to your team, a second and a fourth kind of makes sense. And then if you're asking why would anybody give them that? Because as I just stated, I think there are probably teams in the league that think that Trey's better than McKee and better than Hayner. And so if you miss out on the top 5 quarterbacks that all could go in the top 20, let's say, and you're sitting there at 26, and all of a sudden the Niners are offering you Trey Lance, who's to say you wouldn't make that trade? And if the Niners are willing to take a 2 and a 4, I think there's probably, I agree with Ryan Hensley that I believe there are teams in the NFL, multiple teams that would offer you a second and a fourth round pick for Trey Lance. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's the price that this rumor referenced, I think is probably a very fair price for Trey.
Yeah.
What do you think overall of that?
Overall, no, 100%. Everything you just said, man, drop the mic on it because that is a very, very fair price for a quarterback that, again, what did we say? We don't know. Like, we just led up to this to say we don't know what we have out of Trey Lance. So if the 49ers don't know and they know that they can get some pretty fair value, I'm sure, again, we're not saying that they're going to trade him. We're saying that in looking at this whole body of work, if that was the offer, I think the 49ers would, because you're right. There are guys that they can go and get, like an edge rusher or a tackle that everybody sits here and says, Niners need an edge rusher. Niners need a tackle, But if you get in the third round, it's a little different than getting a guy in the second round because there's a guy that slip into the second round because there's people that take quarterbacks and things like that. So these positions will slip into the second round, and they could have been first rounders, right? And that's kind of what the Niners did last year. They got a guy in Drake Jackson who they had a first round grade in. So maybe they see a guy that they're like, oh man, I can't believe he wasn't drafted in the first round. We absolutely have to get him. So in that sense, yeah, even though he's a second rounder by draft, he was probably a first rounder. So if the 49ers get into that position, 100%. And then going off to what you said, sometimes you get these fourth round picks because you don't want to reach on your third round pick. If you take a guy in the third round and you could have got him in the fourth round, there's another guy that you could have got in the third round that could come in right away and be even better. So the draft is all about positioning and kind of, you have to play it right. And that the 49ers have learned that over the years because there's been times where they absolutely reached on players and it bit them in the ass, right? Like Jalen Hurd, they could have got him maybe a little later because of the injury history, but they wanted him so bad. So they went and got him in the third round. And that really bit them because there was a guy, Terry McLaurin, sitting right there. They could have went and drafted. There was a lot of other players they could have drafted, but they've done that many times. I think they've learned their lesson that you can't reach on certain players. So if they can get a fourth, there may be a guy that, yeah, we could have got him in the third round, but it's better that we get him in the fourth round because in the third round, they want some players that can be impact players that have a real third round draft grade. So again, I think it's a fair price for a quarterback that we have absolutely really little to go on Trey Lance. And we all know that his ceiling is high and everything like that. And you know what? The 49ers do their players right. Even if they're not on the team, they try to set them up for success because they want Trey to have success. And again, if he goes to another team, that's going to give him an opportunity to go out there and prove people wrong. Because if he goes to another team, he's probably going to be the starter, day one starter there, because they're looking for a quarterback to come in and start. And what you said earlier is, yeah, okay, you have these 5 quarterbacks in the NFL draft, probably going in the first round. But there's some teams that really want a really good quarterback. And do they want to gamble and place their chips on a DTR guy or Will Levis, who may not even pan out when you have a guy in Trey Lance who has a lot of potential and maybe he's better than those guys. So go and grab him, But ultimately, like I said, my prediction is they stick around with Trey. But I will guarantee you this. I'm sure John Lynch has heard a lot of calls about Trey Lance. I would not be surprised if we hear some news in the couple weeks that the 49ers have been receiving calls and Trey Lance. I'm sure Rappaport or Schefter will tweet this out in a couple weeks. And then me and you can say, well, see, I told you so. Maybe it was true. But, yeah, no, I don't think they'll trade him. I do like your prediction. I like that you're sticking on it. And again, if they do trade Trey Lance, man, I'm texting you immediately. I'm like, you called it, and I know you won't be happy. You might be happy that you nailed the prediction, but you won't be happy that they traded Trey.
I'm
Like,
not going to be happy, but I may have to do a "I told you so" video
you're
because
going to have to.
let's be honest. There's going to be a S load of people in my grill if they don't. So I almost feel obligated to push back if they do. 49er Josh says, "Mahalo, Krug. Mahalo, Raj. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much." Okay. And I'm, by the way, we're getting so many people in the chat that I'm starring the chat, and I will, as Raj showed me a few weeks ago, or maybe it was Vish. I forget who showed me. Somebody showed me a few weeks ago that how to star through StreamYard. So now I've starred 8 or 9 chats that we'll get to at the end. So here's the other question: is there a player that you've seen in this draft that you love and that you don't think will be there in the third round that you would trade up for? Or either one that you predict, or either one that you love or you predict they love. Because for me, that guy is Isaiah Foskey from Antioch, from De La Salle, from Notre Dame, team captain for Notre Dame, 6'5", 265. Kind of a late bloomer type, but he ran 4.58 in the 40 at 260 pounds, 166, 10-yard split, 34-inch vertical, 22 reps at 225. He took over as Notre Dame's number 1 pass rusher in 2021. He had 12 and a half sacks. He had 6 forced fumbles. 6. He's their team captain. He had 4 block punts in his career. The Lance Zierlein NFL.com prediction is that he will be Yannick Ngakoue. There's an awful lot of Niner people calling for the Niners to sign Yannick Ngakoue. But a lot of people believe his best ball's ahead of him, that he's an incredibly hardworking guy, and that if you look at the edge rushers in this draft, Will Anderson, round 1, Tyree Wilson, round 1, Nolan Smith, round 1, Miles Murphy, round 1, they're saying Will McDonald, round 1. Then you're in that round 2 area, and it's Isaiah Foskey, it's Zach Harrison, it's Derek Hall, it's B.J. Ojolari, it's Byron Young, it's Andre Carter, it's Nick Hampton, there's Yaya Diaby. You're into that next group. But I think Foskey, I just think that he, in a lot of ways, is a plug-and-play 10-year starter opposite Nick Bosa. I think Foskey would be an absolute find for the 49ers if they could get him. I think he's probably going to go around 40, 45. I think he's going to go definitely in round 2. That'll be my guess. They don't pick in round 2. They don't pick until the end of round 3. I think that's him or Michael Mayer from Notre Dame or Emmanuel Forbes, the corner from Mississippi State. I don't necessarily see an offensive tackle that I could see them trading up for. I mean, maybe Skoronski, but I don't think they could get high enough. Maybe Darnell Wright from Tennessee. Maybe Blake Freeland, but he's awfully skinny. He's 302 pounds. It's on a 6'8" frame. Maybe Jalen Duncan from Maryland or Tyler Steen from Alabama. But what do you think, Raj? Is that you're on the draft? I mean, is there a player that if they were to trade up that you think they might be trading up in with that player in mind?
Yeah, man. All those edge rushers you named, I was like, oh my God, we need them. I mean, honestly, that's the route I would go because I think edge rusher, you can have immediate impact on the opposite side of Bosa. Foskey, man, he definitely would be one of those guys. I like Will McDonald. I mean, there's so many, man. Uzoma, Zach Harrison. Honestly, if they can get any one of those like second round edge rushers that are out there, I'd be all in on it. I mean, that's who I feel like the 49ers got to get. Or, O-line, I think there are some guys. We talked about Mock and some of the guys you mentioned, but I just don't know if they're going to be on the table at that point because O-linemen, they go quick. And people are like, oh, man, when the top O-lineman goes, it's like a run. People just start running them. So we're probably going to be able to get somebody decent in the third round. But, yeah, if they're going to go after a second-round O-lineman, there's probably not going to be a lot left. So I think at where they may be ending up, it might come down to like who's the guy in Ohio State?
Zach Harrison.
I think that's the guy.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
Zach.
the offensive tackle or defensive end?
Yeah, offensive tackle.
Paris
With the
Paris Johnson. Paris
John.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
who
the
I
guy.
mean, I saw a video this week where Rick Spielman, the former GM of the Vikings, was saying that he went to a um, like a some kind of an off-season workout years ago, and Paris Johnson, as a high school senior, jumped in to a workout with guys who were prepping for the NFL draft, and he said he didn't even know that he was going to be a freshman in college. He just assumed he was like these other guys. He's 6'6", 313 pounds, but I mean that right there tells you a lot about how good Paris Johnson is. To me, there's really only two or three plug and play right tackles. It's Paris Johnson, it's Pete Skoronski, it's Darnell Wright. That's probably it. Maybe Jalen Duncan.
Maybe. A lot
The
of
rest of the guys I think are all going to sit behind Colton McKivitz.
most likely, and a lot of the other O linemen that are available, like top end second round picks, are centers. You got the kid from TCU, Steve Ivica, and then Luke Whitener. Like those, they're all centers. So you're not going to take a center when you just paid Jake Brendel all this money. So I think what you said earlier
And they got Feliciano, right? They just signed Feliciano as well.
And Matt Pryor is another guy that can move around the O line. So I really don't think they're going to take a tackle, because I don't think there's going to be one available unless they go in the first round, and I just can't see it happening. Tight ends, though, there are a lot of tight ends that I would love them to take. Michael Mayer, obviously, Notre Dame, top of the charts. Kincaid, Musgrave, the kid from Iowa, Sam Laporta. Like, oh man, if they can go get a top quality tight end, I'd be okay with that too, because again, eventually George Kittle is going to be done with this NFL career. I mean, he's 30. I don't know how much more years he has in him. He plays so physically hard, man. Like, I don't know how many more years Kittle has. I hear stuff after the season that he's just in shambles, and I know he trains hard. He works so hard. How many more years does Kittle have on him? I think maybe they'll go get a top end tight end to replace him. I think they're still going to have to get a top end tight end regardless. But I think one of those top tight ends is a guy that I'd look into. Second round, I would not hesitate to get a draft a tight end in this draft in the second round, honestly.
Yeah. William Bennett makes a donation. He says, I like this show. Great content as always. Thank you, William. We appreciate you. Just from doing the deep dives on all the different things out there in the draft dialogue, one of the guys that you may want to remember his name, and he probably is going to be a day 3 guy, but it's a super sleeper. I mean, this guy is just the sleeper of sleepers, and you can tell everybody you got it here first. Eastern Kentucky has a tight end named Dakota Allen. They call him Dak Allen.
Okay.
At the pro day for Eastern Kentucky, he put up 25 reps of 225. Those 25 reps would have been would have led all of the tight ends in Indy. And he's a converted quarterback. He's an athletic freak. First team all ASUN, that was the conference he played in 2024, and then he hurt himself. I think he tore his ACL, I believe, and so he's been rehabbing. He's 6'4", 245 pounds, and they say he's just an awesome player. He's a receiving tight end who, the question is, can he block? But he's got awesome upper body strength. As I said, 25 reps at 225. That's more than a lot of defensive tackles did and would have led all the tight end groups. So
Wow.
Dakota Allen in the 7th round, or Dakota Allen after the draft, may be that sleeper tight end. And once again, Eastern Kentucky. And I Googled him. I read about him. I read articles on him. I saw him interviewed. The 49ers are one of a handful of teams that are looking at him. Because of the injury, there he is. He may not go until day 3 of the draft, but he's definitely an athlete. He's definitely strong. He's definitely a receiver. Hand-eye coordination, really nice looking player for sure. Dakota Allen. So remember that name. And because of the injury, he may be there in the 3rd round. And even in this incredible class of players, tight end, if they don't get one early, you may see them land a guy like Dakota Allen on day 3, or maybe even after the draft.
Yeah.
Matt Mayoko has made predictions for the first 6 49er picks. And this is what he's going with. He's going with the Niners starting with Byron Young, the defensive end edge rusher from Tennessee, then going Wanya Morris, a tackle from Oklahoma, then going tight end with Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan. Then he says they're going kicker, Jake Moody, the number one kicker out of Michigan. He says they're going safety with Jay Ward from LSU. And then he's got the big corner, Corey Trice from Purdue. Those are his top 5 picks for the 49ers. What do you think? What do you think of those picks? I mean, not that you've done a deep dive on all these guys, but what do you think overall of his selections?
Honestly, that's a hell of a draft. But the first two, Young and the tackle out of Oklahoma, I mean, that right there, I'm happy with that. The rest is icing on the cake. Shootamaker from Michigan, I love Michigan, so I watch him all the time. He's a monster, big physical tight end. He can block, he can do it all. We just talked about tight end. He'd be a guy that I'm okay with. Although I like your guy Allen from Eastern Kentucky. I'm gonna keep him on the radar. That sounds like a Kyle Shanahan undrafted special, but
they have a great eye. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm not a Niner fanboy. You know me, man. I will rip. I will ask critical questions. I've had 49er executives in my face screaming at me because of the kinds of questions that I've asked Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in the past. So it's not like I'm the welcome wagon at Ninerland, but let's give credit where credit is fucking due, man. Yeah. These guys, DJ Jones in round 6, Dre Greenlaw in round 5, George Kittle in round 5, the whole slew of undrafted free agents year after year, Jawan Jennings in the 7th round. The Niners scouts between day 3 and after the draft, they're as good as there is in the league right now. Yeah. They're doing a really good job personnel-wise. Yeah, they've missed up front on a few, but, man, they have hit on the back end in a way that very few teams do.
No, 100%. They are so good with late-round picks. I mean, that's why they don't even have first-round picks anymore, really. I feel like they're so focused on their late-round picks because they know they can knock them out of the park. Talanoa Hufanga, all-pro. And one thing that Lynch said is they focus now their draft from going backwards. They look at the end of the draft picks, those prospects, before they creep up to the top end of the draft. So it shows you how much they know they can hit on these late round picks, value picks for pennies on the dollar. Going back to Mayoko's draft, though.
Yeah, what do you think?
Jake, honestly, okay. So out of all the picks, the one that surprised me the most, because Byron Young, I've mocked him to the Niners many times. I think that makes a lot of sense. We talked about edge, but Jake Moody, to me, I would go crazy. He's the top kicker in the draft. Obviously, we talked about this a while back when they signed Zane Gonzalez. John Lynch says they got a kicker, not the kicker. Is Jake Moody the kicker? They bring him in. Is he the kicker? Obviously, top kicker in the draft. Would he be the franchise kicker? I like that pick. I think we need to make sure we have a really good kicker into this team because we're losing Robbie Gould, a playoff legend. The guy doesn't miss when it comes to playoffs. So you better make sure you have a kicker that's not going to miss kicks in the playoffs, because if there's a kicker that comes in next year and we're 2 seconds left in the game, all we got to do is hit a field goal and we miss, it's going to be war zone on the timeline out there and on Twitter. So I like the Moody pick. I love Moody. Get him.
It's an interesting list. It really is. I would say that Maddie's going, shopping for needs over best player available and draft board. But you know what? There ain't nothing wrong with that either. I mean, you come out of this draft filling all your needs. It's all about getting guys that you think can make your roster. The one thing about Byron Young from Tennessee, he had an awesome workout in Indianapolis. But the Niners, I really think, like bigger defensive ends. I think they're going to go for somebody more like 265 or heavier. I don't see too many 240, 245, 250 range guys. And I think that's where Byron Young from Tennessee sits. Haven't studied Wanya Morris very much from Oklahoma. Have to take a look at him. I really like the Schoonmaker pick. He had an incredible on-campus workout with the Wolverine in Ann Arbor. The Jake Moody thing, Raj, I've had people tell me that the Niners are going back to Robbie Gould, and that have you heard that too? I mean, that Zane Gonzalez is about Robbie Gould, and that this talk about these rookies is all about Robbie Gould, and that Robbie Gould will be back with the Niners. I mean, that to me seems That's like wild.
It,
That's a really wild story if that's indeed the case. Because they traded a conditional draft choice for Zane Gonzalez, and they've been working out a number of kickers. Could it all be? Is their first priority to bring back Robbie? And Robbie's still out there, right? He's not. He hasn't signed.
that, yeah, he hasn't signed. So, and the people that I've heard out there, they're saying it's like a full court press to show like Robbie, like, look, man, this is what we're doing. We're moving on. You want to come back? Like it's like it's kind of a
Like high stake poker kind of
yeah, it's
game.
kind of like a sick gamble. You're gambling to say, oh, you're throwing fire on the fuel to say, hey, look, you come with us. Oh, okay, we'll get a kicker, Robbie. Hey, you still want to come? Oh, we're gonna draft a guy, and they're like banking on Robbie to be jealous to say, you know what, I'm better than both of those guys you got. I'm coming back. It's kind of a weird tactic. I don't think that he'll come back, but I feel like there is some truth to that little tactic. But I don't know, man. I think they'll ultimately take a kicker and move on with themselves. I wouldn't mind Jake Moody. But again, it's hard to replace a guy like Robbie Gold because he doesn't miss in the playoffs. And the Niners, if we miss a field goal, man, it's going to be peoples are going to just go and they're going to sit here and say, you should never have got rid of Robbie. You should have paid him. But it's kind of weird that there's like controversy on the kicker situation. In my eyes, I think Robbie definitely wants to stay closer to home, but I don't think anybody offered him. And now he's kind of like, oh, I thought this was going to be easy for me. I thought my market was going to be easy. But again, it's the draft also. So a lot of teams aren't going to be active right now. I think they're going to wait. And then after the draft, right, the week after the draft, there's another little wave of free agent signings that usually happens when people don't hit their needs. Like you said, with the 49ers, Mayoko's draft is they're drafting on their needs. And I think the 49ers over the last couple of years have showed that's kind of what they do. They don't always go with best player available where, in the past they would try to take the best player and it maybe backfired. But I feel like the 49ers, they kind of know their roster. They know what players work for them. And then like you said with Byron Young, maybe that's not the guy they get because they know they're looking for a big, just, speed rusher off the edge. But I definitely think they have to take an edge rusher with one of their first two picks. Because
Yeah.
I'm not too thrilled with that edge situation other than Bosa. Like I like Drake Jackson, but there's a lot of pressure on him to produce this year. And then the other guys, Farrell, Bryant, Barrett, I don't know if they're even going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Raj. It's nice to have depth, and I'm never going to say, "Oh, bad move getting depth at D line," but I don't. I think the guys that walked out the door are significantly better than the guys that came through the door. As far as the edge, obviously Javon Hargrave is big time, but Ebukam, Menahue, those guys are really good football players. Jordan Willis, I mean, God knows Jordan Willis made some big plays for them, and I don't see Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant in that category. So I agree with you. I think edge rusher is going to be significant. And then let me ask you this: do you have a player in the draft? Because I found a guy this weekend that I hadn't watched, that I started watching. And when I started watching him, I'm like, oh my God, they got to get this guy. And I hadn't watched him. And I started watching his film. And I started looking at him, and I'm like, oh, this guy is big time. Big, big, big time. And I'm going to do a video on him. He's my new draft crush. I don't know what Matt Barrow's draft crush is, but this guy is now my draft crush. Before I reveal who my draft crush is, and it's not necessarily out of a position of need necessarily, but I don't care. I would draft this guy just based on what his film looked like, and the more I've read about him. But do you have one? Is there, in all, you're pouring a lot into the draft and into looking at different players and that kind of thing. And you got a good instinct for it. Is there a player that you've seen that you'd be like, oh my God, if they could get that guy, that would be freaking amazing?
Yeah, actually, this weekend I was I was live. I think Friday I did a call-in show, and one of my viewers was like, "Raj, have you looked at this guy?" And honestly, I didn't even have this guy on my radar because I haven't been looking at this position. So he sent me the video, showed me. So I pulled up some film and everything. And this kid, he's a running back from East Carolina University.
Yes. Oh, I love him.
This kid is
Keaton Mitchell, right? Keaton Mitchell.
So I was like, let me take a look at it. Honestly, I don't think the 49ers necessarily need a running back, but you can never have too much with this team. Run first team, the injuries. We know Elijah Mitchell is a guy that hasn't been, able to stay healthy. He is so shifty. I was envisioning it so I just put him in my head in a Niners uniform. I was watching him run through Kyle Shanahan's zone blocking scheme, and I was like, yep, That's the guy. This guy could be one of those late round picks that we talked about, or an undrafted. Like, this is the Shanahan undrafted special. Keaton Mitchell. This is the guy. If you guys want a running back, this is the guy I think the Niners need to go. He is so shifty. This guy's got like speed and I love this kid, Keaton Mitchell. He just is a new guy that I hadn't even looked into him.
Yeah.
And this weekend I was,
East
oh
Carolina Pirate.
yeah,
That's what he played for. And he's small. He's
yeah,
5'10". He's not 190 pounds. He's under 190. But what I love about Keaton Mitchell is he's electric. He's
yeah.
electric. Like, this guy is your Tyreek Hill type mover in the open field. And this is the guy that defenses are like, the defensive coordinator is like on the dry erase board going, take proper angles on this MFer. Damn it. Ah! You know what
He
I
would
mean?
be a yak, bro. He'd be a new yak.
Oh, dude, he
Throw him
would
in
be
space. He
awesome.
gone.
Yeah, they don't need him, but they need him. You know what I mean? They don't need him, but damn, you want him. Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. The thing about Keaton Mitchell, he's 2 steps full speed, and the same way that Raheem Mostert could get to the edge in that outside stretch zone, and cut it back, this guy can do the same thing. He can get to the outside at will. Speed kills. I'd love to see more from Ray. I'd love to see more from Danny Gray. But, I mean, this guy is absolutely electric speed. To me, him and the Izzy Anaconda from Pittsburgh, but those guys are both, I mean, incredible athletes. Anaconda is bigger and can run between the tackles. Keaton Mitchell is much more of he's not a bell cow back. He's a specialist. He's a return man. He's a flex him out wide. You put him on the field as a wide receiver, run a reverse to him, but he's so damn fast that it's like, you want him, you want to have him, you want to as a Niner defender, you want to watch him, not try to defend him. So if he's on your team, you get to watch him. If he's on another team, you got to defend him. So that's a great one. All right, I'm going to give you mine. It's Byron Young.
Oh,
but it's not the Tennessee Byron Young.
Oh,
It's the Alabama Byron Young.
oh.
We're double Byron Younged in
Wow.
in this draft. And I just hadn't watched him, and Bama's got so many guys. But, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a scout last week, and he's like, Krug, if you want to do yourself right, go through the Georgia kids, the LSU kids, and the Bama kids a second and a third time. And his reasoning is that the best teams in the country are, as far as talent, are Bama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, and that there are guys that are 5 stars and 4-star high school recruits that just go there and they just kind of blend because there's just so much talent on the field, and people just kind of overlook these guys. And in reality, they're some of the best athletes you're going to find at LSU and Alabama and Georgia. And sure enough, I'm like, you know what? I got to take time and watch Byron Young. So I start watching him the other day. He's a defense. He's 6'3", 295. So he's a big boy. He's an interior guy. And they don't really need an interior guy. But Raj, this guy has movement ability and pass rush ability and explosiveness and the ability to close either against the run or on quarterbacks, flatten down the line of scrimmage. He is freakishly athletic at 295 pounds. He's a pass rusher. He's versatile. The Niners love to play their twists and their stunts games, and they love the TE stunts and the ET stunts. I mean, this guy's absolutely perfect. You can put him outside; he's fast enough to play end. You can put him inside; he's bulky enough to play tackle. But at the end of the day, this guy rushes the passer with a vengeance. Someone said, "Who does he remind you of?" A better, more athletic, more naturally big Ronald Blair.
Ooh.
Remember Ronald Blair with the Niners, who was, Ronald Blair was great at App State, and, went to the Jets, I think, eventually. I think he jumped in free agency to the Jets. Yeah. But this guy is Byron Young from Alabama, 295, and he just moves incredibly well. And he's not an every down guy. He's a guy that you would play in a rotation, but who cares?
But
This
we
guy
need
is just so electric, so explosive. I looked at where he's projected to go. He's projected to go in like the fourth round. So to me, I take, let's say they got 3 picks there at the end of the third round. I take a couple guys that I really want, and then I trade back a few spots, and take Byron Young. I mean, Byron Young from Alabama is absolutely one of my very favorite players. And I looked at all the tackles. I looked at Coburn. I've looked at Dante Stills. I've looked at all these defensive tackles. There's some guys with strength, and there's some guys with quickness, but nobody who's got the kind of explosiveness to throw away blockers and get to the quarterback, or throw away blockers and close on the running back. This guy is just, the movement ability at 295 is off the charts. And then I went and looked at his background. Sure enough, he was an all-world recruit out of the state of Mississippi and didn't stay home, went to Bama. And that's what Bama does. Bama takes the best kids out of California, the best kids out of Mississippi, the best kids out of Georgia. They get these kids to leave the state and come play for them. And some of the greatest athletes you're going to find in this country in college football are coming out of the state of Mississippi. And this kid is something else. And then I saw the interview. Kid's really conscientious. He's smart. He'd fit in great. I mean, go look at Byron Young, the defensive end / defensive tackle from Alabama. And they don't need another defensive tackle, but this guy's so fast. I might want to lean him out to like 280 and play him at end. I mean, he's really, really freaky athletic. And a lot of people talk about Byron Young, from Tennessee, who had a great workout at the combine, and he's a terrific edge rusher. But he's a little on the light side. But the Byron Young from Alabama is crazy good. All right. That's the guy. That's my draft crush. Matt Barrows, are you listening? Byron Young. Not Mayoko's Byron Young. Krueger's Byron Young. Alabama. All right. Couple last ones before we let you go. We appreciate all the time. I did a video this week that I really am proud of, and really, sometimes you like fall into information and you're like, dude, I gotta share this information with the public because I don't think people get it. And I would say that, I've been all rah Brock Purdy. You guys all know that. Yeah. But I think one of the shocking developments of this offseason has been how all in John, Jed, and Kyle are on Brock Purdy by comparison to Trey Lance, right? I mean, they made it perfectly clear. Brock's the guy. And I think the immediate reaction was, why are they so in love with Brock off a short sample size? And obviously he played really well. But, people see the diminutive size and the injury to the elbow and Trey getting better and how athletic he is and what they spent to get up to get him. And they just think, well, come on, it doesn't make any sense to move off of Trey Lance. Not now, not until you know what Brock Purdy is, right? I think that's kind of the consensus opinion. And to me, that reasoning totally makes sense. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it doesn't. It does. It makes sense. You don't know about the elbow. We don't know about his future. But I'm watching Path to the Draft the other day, and they show an interview with Eric DeCosta, who replaced Ozzie Newsome as the GM of the Ravens. And Eric DeCosta was like, yeah, we're going to look at quarterbacks. And he's like, look at San Francisco. I mean, look at the job that they did finding Brock Purdy. And you could see that he was saying, hey, there could be good quarterbacks on day 3 of the draft. And look what San Francisco did. And he had this incredible respect for the Niners and their ability to find Purdy and for Purdy. And then John Schneider said the same thing at the Combine. He's like, hey, look, the way they were playing at the end of the year with Brock Purdy and this and that, 2 really sharp GMs who clearly like Brock Purdy. But I was wondering to myself, why are the Niners brass so convicted on Brock Purdy? And I'm watching Path to the Draft the other night, and sure enough, they're talking about how Brock Purdy's way better than most people realize. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you knew these stats. I'm going to throw them your way. This is his passer rating by situation and where it ranked in the NFL, okay? So using passer rating as the barometer, off play action pass, Brock Purdy last year, and this includes the regular season and the playoffs, 130.3 QB rating on play action. Guess where that ranked in the NFL?
I'm gonna
among
say
all quarterbacks.
top three. Top three.
First.
Wow.
First.
Wow.
Okay, but you know what? Then you're thinking, okay, well, so he's good on play action. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Then what's his quarterback rating in rhythm? It's 125.2.
Wow.
Where do you think that ranked in the NFL? Obviously, you know it's high because otherwise I wouldn't be
Maybe number two.
number one.
Wow.
Number one.
Okay.
Then when you included a pre-snap shift or a pre-snap motion, which Kyle Shanahan is known for, he had a quarterback rating of 118.3. Guess where that ranked?
That's got to be one because Shanahan's the pre-snap guru.
First. I mean, we're talking about first in the
That's crazy.
NFL.
And he was the last.
Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Burrow, pick your guy, right? Aaron Rodgers, Brady that played last year, first. Okay, here's the one that really shocked me. Outside the numbers, because a lot of people are like, yeah, well, Brock can hit these, little crossers, like cross his face for 10 yards, but, he doesn't have the ability, the arm strength or whatever to operate outside the numbers, and he doesn't have his ball hangs and this and that. He doesn't have the arm strength. Outside the numbers, his quarterback rating was 112.9. Guess where that ranked in the NFL?
I'm guessing it's number one, which is
first.
That's crazy.
First.
That's crazy.
And the last one is if you did not blitz, if you sat back and just rushed 3 or 4 and dropped 7 or 8 into coverage. He had a 112.6 rating. That was first.
Oh
first.
He was the top in any situation.
First in the NFL. In 5 major situational categories, this guy's quarterback rating wasn't even second to Mahomes or third behind Herbert and Burrow. Or Josh Allen had an incredible start to his year. Brock Purdy off the bench as a rookie with basically didn't play the first half of the year, played in preseason, then sat until the Miami game. That was like December, right? Or was it November? December, somewhere in there.
Yeah. No, December 4th because I was at that.
December. Okay, so the guy played in training camp, then practiced and played no games the entire time until December. And then stepped on the field and was first in all these categories. So if you're sitting there going, why is Shanahan and why is Lynch and why are they so wed to Brock? That's why. That's why right there. The guy was better than we thought.
And that's exactly what Lynch said in his press conference. He goes, honestly, we knew he had talent, but he was better than we even imagined. And those stats are mind-blowing. I mean,
that's mind-blowing.
That's absolutely
blew my mind.
It's crazy. Now, a lot of that is do you put any of that stock on like Kyle Shanahan for putting him in successful situations? Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Yeah,
but at the same time, he had to go out there and execute. And the fact that he was a rookie quarterback, not even that he was the last pick in the draft, I don't even care, that he was a rookie. How many rookies are doing that, Larry? How many rookies are doing that? That's crazy.
None. So if you're sitting there going, I don't understand why they love Brock Purdy so much. That could be one of the reasons right there. Wow. That might be one of the reasons.
And they won games.
And they won games, and he's on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if they were paying him a ton, it'd be one thing. But he doesn't even count against the cap because his contract's so low. So that stood out to me and made me go, wow, you got to be kidding me. All right. Let's hit the starred chats, and we'll bolt for the door. This is what we got here. 49er Josh. Zach Pickens, defensive tackle. Senior Bowl tape is amazing. Kinlaw's replacement. Wouldn't that be something? South Carolina for South Carolina. We got this one. Pete 98146. Nobody hates Trey. Yeah, I mean, come on. Seriously, how many times we got to say it? Darren Ty. Can Zakel realistically step in and play guard or tackle? I believe so. I really and forget just guard. I don't know about. He definitely can't play left tackle. I think he could play right tackle, right guard, or center. Yeah. I like Zakel quite a bit. Bomber T, you the man, Larry. Bomber, I wouldn't have put it up there if you'd said you suck. For 49er Josh Faithful, nobody hates Trey, so go somewhere else with that S. There we go. Clarsard, Krug's too deep in the Brock rabbit hole. What can I say? Pete says, Larry, don't overthink this. It's all about whether said quarterback is a good fit for Kyle's offense. Some are, some aren't. That's fair.
Good look at it, yeah.
Terradome says Larry Krueger just knows the lay of the land. He's connected. He's in the room. He's intuitive, and he's sharing. Hate if you must. It's a you problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Terradome.
That,
I hate to point fingers, but that's true. 49er Josh says Jalen Duncan is a good player. Yeah, he might be the offensive tackle they're trading up for. We talked about that.
mm,
We got a guy says Greg Escon says Derek Hall comparison Carl Lawson. I'll give you another Derek Hall comparison. He's an awful lot like D Ford. And they went, D Ford, kind of a shorter defensive end, but unbelievable speed. Derek Hall kind of reminds me. This one on the Warriors and Kings, fish and chips. The beam won't be on for much longer. Are you into Warriors Kings, Raj, at all?
yeah, man, I'm a Warriors fan out here. That's gonna be a fun series. I'm telling you right now, Warriors are winning this because the Kings are inexperienced. I'm gonna say it right now. It's gonna be a 6, maybe 7. It'll be a 6-7 game series. Warriors are gonna make work out of them because they are the experienced team, and then they'll take on the Suns and crush them. But no, that's neither here nor there.
49er Josh, Zach Pickens, my draft crush. He's a D tackle, which we really don't need, but damn, he's good. Yeah, he is good.
He's good.
Got Chris says, give me ECU running back Keaton Mitchell in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. Raj is saying hell to the yes.
Yes, sir.
Eric says the Pitt running back. That's Izzy Anabaconda, who's special too. 49er Josh, Keaton is a monster. And then MF dropping a little Giants knowledge. Austin wins DFA'd after one game. Yeah, I mean, if you think you know who's on the Giants, you know who was on the Giants yesterday. Do you know who's on the Giants tomorrow? That's the one. Marcus Harris says the Niners should also draft Keitrell Clark if he falls to them. Love him. Slot corner, Raj, you got to check him out.
Check him out.
Yeah, my buddy Tony Pauline said they looked at that they were hot on the trail of Keitrell Clark, and when I watched this film, I loved him. He's had some injuries, but I loved him. Terradome says trust Krug, or I trust Krug. We got this one from, what about Bryce Ford Wheaton? I'll say this, the 40 times crazy and the size and speed is off the charts, but the production ain't there. So when I watched him, I thought, wow, the guy can really move for a guy that size, but the production's just okay. He's much more of a developmental guy. And we got this one from Devin. Raj used to be a LeBron fanboy. Glad he's seen the light.
Oh, that's not even true, but that's a story for another
Oh, really?
day. Yeah.
He's speaking untruths?
I've never been a LeBron fanboy. I mean, I respect
Well,
LeBron.
you're not a fan. First of all, you're not a fanboy, period.
I'm not a LeBron fanboy. I mean, I respect him. He's a great player, but never been a LeBron fanboy. Never. I don't claim that.
Yeah, come on. Let's not diss Raj here on the show. Marcus Harris says, I'm with you, Larry. Marte Mapu is a beast. I just love saying that name. I would love to hear Tim Ryan, tackle in the backfield by Marte Mapu,
That's one of those old name teams. He would make you.
My camera. Hold on. I'm going to switch the camera.
Larry,
my camera for whatever reason is not been good. So I've been having it like burns out after a little bit. I think I've got either it's unplugged or it's getting too hot.
It said internal light too hot or something. That's what the error was. I saw a message.
What did you say? What did it say?
It says internal light too hot, too warm. That's what it said when he blacked out there.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll call it right here. Raj, good stuff, man. Have a great week. Tell people what you got going on this week. Obviously, we're counting it down to the draft. We're inside of 3 weeks. Yeah. What kind of stuff you putting out there?
I mean, same stuff. We're just gonna be live. We got my shows all week. Wednesday, Thursday show, and then I brought back the call-in show. Friday nights, call-in show. Be there, be square. If you want to get stuff off your chest, call in Friday night, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and get it off your chest. Tell me how much you hate a certain player. I don't know, whatever you got to say.
I love the calls. The calls are good, but you got to have your finger on the button just in case.
I have a 5-minute timer. You gone.
Oh, there you know. But I'm saying, be careful. Nobody screws with you on that. That can be bad.
Right. It could be.
Raj, have a great Monday.
You too, man. Take care.
We'll talk to you soon. The great Raj from RSF 49ers. He is phenomenal. All right. Catch me at 2:00 with Mark Willard on 95.7 The Game, and it's 12:30, so I better jet. I'm going to head out to San Francisco right now. Got to stop by my favorite newsstand and maybe pick up maybe pick up a draft guide or two. We got this one from Fish and Chips. Breaking news, Larry Krueger signed by the Giants catching for tomorrow. Yes, yes. Terradome says, Raj is the man. Yeah, Raj is absolutely phenomenal. Love his content and always love rapping with Raj. He's got a lot of good things to say. He's got a lot of interesting things that he wants to talk about, and he's dialed in. All right, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Corte Madera and in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County, and here's what it looks like.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krug Show. Join me at 2 o'clock with Mark Willard on 95.7 The Game. We'll talk Warriors. We'll talk Trey Lance trade rumors. We'll talk about the weekend that was for the Giants, who needed everything they could possibly muster just to get one game from the Royals. And we'll look ahead to the Giants and the Dodgers and the Warriors and the Kings. Catch it, 2 o'clock on 95.7 The Game. And until then,
yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for. Careful, whatever you bring me getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need